what's your future going to look like? How do you
Mm-hmm.
get from point A to point B? That's like alternate future is there icons for each of these, and that is a map, and it's like, where are you at? Where do you want to be? And what would that look like? How can you get there? When have you already been there? So it does allow for that future thinking and, being able to move toward whatever goal you're looking for.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brighter Together podcast. My name is Janet Courtney, and my guest today is Joe Pendleton. And Joe is the SEL-Behavior Specialist at Mahtomedi Public School, which I just learned how to pronounce, in Mahtomedi, Minnesota. Joe, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So, Joe, tell everybody a little bit about what you do and a little bit about Mahtomedi schools.
Great. So, I originally went to school to be a school psychologist at UW River Falls, close by here. And I did that for about 15 years in different schools. And I started off working in schools that were like K-12, working at elementaries and high schools. Then I worked for a school where I was early childhood all the way through transition program at 21. Wow. And then I started working my way down to I believe in early intervention. So I wanted to work more at the elementary level. And then finally, I now work here in Mahtomedi at Wildwood Elementary. We're a pre-K through second grade school. Mahtomedi is, I think, unique in a way because we have a pre-K through second grade school, a third through fifth grade school, a sixth through eighth, and then a ninth through 12th. But all the kids go through that one progression, just one school at each grade level or at the different levels. Mm-hmm. And Wildwood has 600 students, nine classrooms per grade.
Pre-K through second grade, you have 900 students, big district.
Oh, 600.
So 600. I'm sorry,
yep,
600.
Yep.
Still a big district.
Yep.
Big district.
Yep. So instead of splitting it up into like a couple of K5 buildings, we just have K2. So, which again allows me to kind of specialize at a certain age range and get to that developmental level. So a lot of like 600 kids, 27 classroom teachers, and a whole bunch of extra support people in the building to do what we can to help kids, realize their best hopes.
Right. Yeah, that's fantastic. So I'm assuming you're not the only one if there's 600 kids there. So others in your department?
So I'm the SEL-Behavior Specialist. We also have a 0.5 social worker and a paraprofessional that works with me. Okay. So, wow. And the 0.5 person is new last year, middle of the year. So super excited to have that extra person. But yeah, we do everything. I do everything from facilitating the climate committee and our problem solving teams, which we call solutions, which I like.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then I also run small groups, do class-wide guidance lessons, and I am the point person on the, walkie calls.
Wow.
So I get to do a whole bunch of different things every day. It makes it exciting. And, made it so I really had to figure out what I wanted to have as my base. What do I want to do that can flow through each of those levels? So that's kind of what I've been working on the last 20 years to figure out where I want to come from, no matter where I'm at or who I'm working with, whether it's proactive or reactive.
Yeah. Yeah, because kids don't want to be bad. They don't want to be bad. No, they're reacting to what's happening, external stimuli, internal stimuli. I was telling you before the podcast, we're in the same vein, you and I, because I've been a speech therapist for 31 years, and kids are just they just want to be happy. They don't intentionally be bad, and I love that because 31 years ago we didn't think that way.
Right.
When I started doing this.
Yeah, I really believe in that. Kids do well if they can. That Ross Green had talked about with collaborative and proactive solutions. But then also the expansion is we all want to do well if we can, so it's all about building skills. So a couple of the different ways that I've done that I think really work with the K2 kids are two things. I went through a mental performance mastery course, which is supposed to be more for sports coaches. But,
Mhm.
just the ability to look at focusing and self-talk and visualization that like the athletes use, and then bringing it back to the school and talking to the kids about that, so it's like, hey, do you watch football? Yeah, I watch football. Hey, next time you watch, notice what happens after a receiver drops the ball. They'll do something to reset. You have to have
Mhm.
that short-term memory and move on from your mistakes. Um, that was one of the things a couple of years ago. Parents came in for a conference and they said, like, you talked into my kid about Tom Brady?
Mhm.
And it was right after the Super Bowl. And they were like, yeah, we know who Tom Brady is. The kid was like, I know who Tom Brady is. And I'm like, well, yeah, because in our group, I talked to him about, Tom Brady was asked, what would you tell a younger version of you if you could tell him one thing? And he said, as quickly as you can, figure out what's good, figure out what's bad, do more good, do less bad. And
Yep.
I'm like, those little simple nuggets that then kids can, think about, well, if that works for a NFL quarterback, I'm going to do it. So a lot of it's finding out what the kids are interested in that I'm going to be working with, and then
Yeah.
bringing that in, whether it's football, soccer, which I had to learn more about, hockey here because we're the state of hockey in Minnesota.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's just
Yeah.
trying to figure out what's going to work for them. And I like it because it really talks to that whole like mistakes are going to happen. It's what are you going to do after that?
Yeah.
Everything's a learning experience.
Yeah.
Uh,
I had one student, he was into WWE, and I'll tell you, I learned more than I ever wanted to know about. He was a great kid, such a great kid. But that's the only way I could get him to talk was, with any child, when you're doing therapy, you find that hook. But man, I learned a lot about WWE we would literally, and with his mom's permission, we would go to the WWE website and he would tell, and the knowledge that this child had, and he was a fluency kid. So, we were working on his fluency while he was talking, and he'd get so excited that he would just, he was more fluent when he
yeah.
was excited, so it was just crazy. But boy, I tell you, you find the thing,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Right? Because
amazing.
that's the thing, right? We want kids to feel they need to know they belong. They need to know they're going to be successful and they need to feel
Mm-hmm.
connected.
Right.
So I feel like
Yep.
that's a
Valued.
good, yeah. So I feel like that's a good way to do it is bringing in, whether it's a sporting thing or an activity they're in.
Mm-hmm.
That's one way that I've been doing it. One thing that I learned in that program was it's called a release routine, which I call it a reset routine here at school. But it's basically when something's happening and you start to feel, um, yourself become less calm or whatever, you do a physical cue. I tell the kids I spin my ring, and then you take a deep breath. So I take a deep breath, and then you say something to yourself to move on. And I say, I got this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I tell all the kids that. I've really started talking to them about like, and now in group, I was talking to them like, you know what? I'm going to start doing that every time I walk through a door because then my mind is going to be ready no matter where I'm at. And we have like, I'm like, that was 5 doors between your room and my office that I
Then
just,
you got that affirmation 5 times. Yeah,
yep,
that's fantastic. That's
yep. So
fantastic.
teaching those easily rememberable, usable skills,
Mm-hmm.
so it's really applied, that type of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So, and then for the longest time, I kind of was, I learned about solution focused brief counseling in graduate school just a little bit. My practicum supervisor taught me more of that. And then this year I went through a certification course and just that now is front of mind. And it finally is like super clicked where I go into every situation thinking about that. And I even came up with an acronym because again, I went to school for school psychology, and in special ed we have acronyms
Oh
everywhere.
yeah, yeah.
So
I sometimes I have to stop our podcast and go, okay, we love our acronyms, but you have to tell everybody what that is,
yeah,
because it's a language that not everybody gets, and hopefully there's people that are listening to the podcast that will go, oh, okay,
yeah,
because it's state by state, region by region, whatever,
yeah.
so.
So the acronym's SF Bears, which stands for Solution Focused Bears, and Bears stands for Best Hopes, Exceptions, Alternate Future, Resources, and Scaling.
Oh,
And
nice.
those are like 5 big pillars or steps or approach to solution-focused counseling. So every time that I go into a meeting now, I'm thinking, what are your best hopes? I start, our solutions problem-solving meeting, which used to start with, basically the problem. What is the kid doing wrong? And now it's, what are your best hopes for this meeting?
That
And it just
totally changes the narrative, doesn't it?
yeah.
Flips it on its head. Flips it on its head. Because now you're not focusing on the bad things that child is doing, right?
Yeah. So we talk about that. Same with parents. And then like the E is exceptions. So then you go, well, when isn't it happening? When is the student having a better day? Even just a little bit, take note of when that has happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they're like, well, this kid never, it's like, well, can you think of a kid that you've had before that has had a similar difficulty and you were able to figure it out? Like, what did you do? So then it puts it back into the teacher because they're the experts. I come in, I help facilitate, but really, I could come up with the most evidence-based, perfect intervention on the planet, but unless we can actually do it.
Implementation. Yeah.
Right. Implementation is all of it. And I found that this solution-focused way of doing it gives the ownership and expertise back to the student and the parents and the teachers. And then implementation is more guaranteed because they came up with the plan.
Right.
Yeah,
that's wise. Mm-hmm.
And
that's not just somebody externally saying, this is what you need to do, and this is going to make your child all better. And then they try it and it doesn't work. And then they're frustrated.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Instead, it's when has it already worked just a little bit, and then it goes to alternate future, right? That's where it's like, well, what would it look like? When things are better, when you leave my office and go back to class and things are better, even just a little bit today, what would that look like? What would you notice? What would your friends notice? What would your teachers see you doing? What difference would that make? That type of language. Then you go down to the R of resources. What strengths, talents, and supports do you already have?
Mm-hmm.
And then the S is scaling. So it's like, where are you at on a scale of 1 to 10? One, and I've after 20 years, I go 1 being the worst it could be, 10 being the best it could be. On that scale of 1 to 10, where are you at? And I found that, kindergarten through second graders, they understand that. Sometimes you have to be more visual. You might have to put it on a board, do it that way. But kind of so for the last half of this year, I've really been front of mind focusing on this Bears thing. And it has made my days so much better, more enjoyable to come to work. Feel like it's easier to make a difference. The phone calls to parents are so much easier when you're talking about solutions instead of problems.
Right.
Like, hey, this happened on the playground. Your son and I wrote a story. Like, I've been writing a bunch of stories using solution-focused bears. I was meeting with a first grader and we were talking about it, and I'm like, well, what clues would tell you that things are better? And then I was like, oh, clues. Like a detective. If you're a detective, well, how about if you're a hope detective? What would you see yourself doing? And then I was like, oh, now SF Bears has to have a character that kindergartners through second graders can relate to. So I came up with Scout F Bears. He's a little bear, and he lives in the wild woods.
Yeah.
Just it kind of made itself, and it has been like a sea change of with groups and even in the moment reactive walkie calls, really being able to focus on the best hopes and what would be going better. And like I said, I started writing stories with kids and between groups where Scout helps them with whatever problems they might have.
Yeah. And
it really got good because I went to pick up a group of kids and the teacher was like, well, you need to work on these three out of these 4 kids need to work on keeping their hands to themselves, looking at the board, and being quiet. And in the past I would be like, nope, I have my set curriculum, this is what I have to do, how don't you don't understand what I do? And instead I was like, all right, we'll work on it. So we came down quickly, wrote out a story about what that would look like, and at the end of it they were like, you need to share this with my teacher. like I want her to read it to our whole class. So, and with that, I started thinking about, well, we need to get this to the entire school. So now, over the summer, I'm working on guidance lessons so we can do some quick, whole school solution focused language. Because I mean, who can go against best hopes?
Right. Yeah. It's goal setting. You're teaching kids how to set goals for what they want, in a language that they understand. It's funny that you said that, you going through doors. I have, and it's a sticker that I got from my hairdresser, believe it or not, but it says, you can do hard things.
Yeah.
Every day. You can do hard things. And it's stuck to every time I sit down, I see it.
Yeah.
It's like we all have those tools as adults that we use that helps us to get through the hard days and the difficult things and whatever. And some of us do it better than others, just like some of your kids do it better than others. But you're teaching them. You're teaching them how to handle those emotions. And it's something that is so, so desperately needed in the world that we live in. I don't know where we went wrong,
Right.
It's just aren't. And so many people I interview, it's like everybody's talking. I mean, education has their buzzwords, right? There's always buzzwords, but this social emotional stuff it's critical. I mean, it's just critical. And you're dealing with the little ones that went through COVID as babies and, had to deal with that. So the fact that you've got this program and you're teasing it out for them is a blessing to those kids, really.
Yeah. And like I said, what I like about it is, well, you just said it actually, like it's all about that. What's your future going to look like? How do you get from point A to point B? That's like alternate future is there icons for each of these. And that is a map, and it's like, where are you at? Where do you want to be?
Yeah.
What would that look like? How can you get there? When have you already been there? So it does allow for that future thinking and, being able to move toward whatever goal you're looking for. And that is the goal you're looking for.
Right. Not somebody else's goal for you, right? Yeah.
Correct. And it can be the student can have a goal and the teacher can have a different one, right? And we can have more than one best hope, right? You can have your best hope on the playground and best hope at home and best hope for nighttime routines. But they should align. If they align, they work better. But no, it's been great. Like I said, this last year, I mean, I'm working during the summer on, these lessons and putting together a small group package and program type of thing with my wife, who she went to school for graphic design and art.
Oh, fun.
So and then she hasn't done it for about 20 years. And now she's drawing and putting the scenes together of the Wildwood. So it's kind of neat to leave the school year and not just forget about it. Because sometimes in education, that's what you want to do. You want to spend your time not thinking about it. But I'm so excited that I'm like working on it daily.
Right. Yeah.
You're trying to use it.
Yeah.
Yep.
You've found your niche. You found your passion. And honestly, Joe, when you have a passion and you love what you do, work is not work. I don't consider what I do work. I get to do this every single day. Even when it aggravates me, I still get to do this. And I don't know how many times I've told, and I was telling my director of finance, we were on the phone with the IRS. I had to run an errand this morning and we were on the phone with the IRS on the way home. I'm in my car because I'm the CEO, I'm the founder, I'm the owner, and they wouldn't talk to her without this particular form, or I had to verify whatever. And it was aggravating. It was really aggravating. But after I got off the phone with the IRS, I was telling my, and my director of finance happens to be my best friend in the entire world. And she's in Michigan and I'm in South Texas, and moved away from her. I said, the only regret I have about being in Corpus Christi, Texas is she's not here, and because we've been friends for 15 years, but I was telling her, I was seeing pelicans on the way, like 20 of them out in the bay. And I love birds. I'm a huge bird person. And it was just, I was like, I get to do this every day. I get to. It's not, even after the frustration of having to deal with a situation that wasn't fun, my mental status or whatever immediately went back to, I am so blessed to be where I am. And that's exactly what you're talking
Yep.
about. And
Oh, for
lovers, they
sure.
do. Yeah.
Well, and that's part of like solution focused has I've been using it for years, mostly with kids with anxiety or the kids that don't want to come to school. And it works. I mean, that's the thing. It's like the rubber hits the road and it works and they start come to school and um because it's their plan.
Yeah.
So you meet with the kid and you come up with a plan like, tomorrow morning you decide to come to school. What would be different? What would be happening? How would your parents know? What would that day look like? And you have them like express it in such detail that then you're like, hey, can I share that with your parents so they can help remind you about this?
Yeah.
It's about reminding, not telling you what to do, so they can remind you of the plan that you came up with.
Ownership.
This is your plan. You did it. Yep.
Yeah.
So it's all about that ownership piece. And like I said, responding to walkie calls now with a more solution focused view of things. It just takes away that whole thing where right away you say to the kid, this isn't about trouble. This is about what can you do better? What would it look like? Moving forward, what are your best hopes? What would the playground look like tomorrow if things were better? So it's just such it's kind of liberating, So for a long time I've been the behavior person that always talks about it being learning. I do believe that whole thing about, if a kid struggles in reading, you teach. If they struggle in math, you teach. If they struggle with behavior, you teach, right? And it's all about that. And like just being able to talk to parents on the phone, like I said before, where it's like, what are your best hopes, and what would that look like? It's such a relief, and it makes parents. Their guard goes down and they're no longer thinking about how bad their kid is and how bad they are as a parent. Now it's all about what do we do better? What are those best hopes and how can we make those happen?
Right. It's interesting too that one of the questions that I always ask at the end of my podcast is if you could miraculously solve one issue in your world, and it can't be money because everybody wants money, but what would it be? And that's really kind of what you're talking about. How do you make your universe, your world a little bit better if you could fix this one thing? Because that's where the reason I ask that question is, where's your heart? It really gets to the heart of, and I've the question, you're like the 76th podcast I've done. So, it's like I've been asking this question for a while, but we've modified it. I've modified it enough to go in your world. And hopefully it gets people the point of the question. I'm a therapist. I will always be a therapist. It's never, it's just, it's ingrained in us, teaching and helping. And I mean, everything that I do, I'm a business owner. Yes, I have a contract company, and yes, we serve schools, but everything we do is about serving and taking care of and making the world a better place. And that's a mindset that not every business owner has, because they answer to a board, they answer to, their boss and their boss's boss. And I always tell people, I'm like, I trust that people are going to do their job. I verify, trust but verify. But you give people the opportunity to set goals and to have the vision, give them a clear vision of where they want to. It's all the stuff that you're talking about, but you're dealing with kindergartners and preschoolers up to second graders, but there's still, that psyche doesn't change. We're still humans. We still have wants and needs and desires and all of those things. So I love the fact that you've learned it, and and I love the affirmation that, wow, this is really great, because I'm kind of already doing this in my own world, which is, it's great.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's early intervention, and kind of, you mentioned that sign, like, the whole bears thing, like a dad came in for conferences and he sat down. He's like, man, you really like bears, don't you? Because I have a wooden carving of a bear. I'm wearing a bear belt buckle.
Right.
I've got bear. And it's like, well, it's more than just I like bears.
Yeah, to remind.
I think it's a reminder. It's that constant reminder of where I'm coming from. So,
yeah.
was gonna say, I had an answer for your question, but what was that
The
question?
question was if you could miraculously change one thing. And I don't say magic wand because I don't, I just miraculously, because if you think about a section of your life that you have control over that's happening in your world, and miraculously, let's make it go away and make it better. But truly, we can do amazing and miraculous things if we work on it, if it comes to mind as something. So that was the question, and you don't have to answer it. You're welcome to answer it, but it was just it just tied so well into what you were already talking about. So,
well, and just what you said made me think of, I don't remember who said it, but it's like we're living a miracle, so like every day we're living it, so we don't need to wait for it. So I mean, basically mine, I did a presentation, solution-focused conference. It's a 24-hour one, but I did a presentation. It's like that old comedy thing where it's like the first bit or the first set I ever did, I had two viewers, like it was the bartender and the janitor. Like that's kind of what it was like, but it gave me an idea, or it allowed me to share these ideas a little bit more and more concisely. But ultimately, it was called I Need Your Help to Revolutionize Education with Solution-Focused Bears. So what would my miracle be? That's what we do, and like, that's why I'm working on it during the summer, so I can start with my own school. And hopefully it can be the ripple that spreads, So we are talking about, solutions and more positive sides of things, and, what it would look like. I just think if that's the way we went into every meeting, every difficult situation, things would turn out a lot better, and we would have a map to that future and realize what we've already done. Like, again, that's why I like it, because it kind of weaves in and out. It doesn't have to go in a certain path. And I mean, like right now I have kids, because we've done that scaling. I walk down the hallway and they just flash a number with their hands, or like out of nowhere, it'd be like 7. And I'm just like, what? Oh yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10, you're at a 7. So I could say, so I can quickly be like, all right, you're at a 7. What are you doing to be at a 7? They tell me, what can you do to get to an 8? Yeah. And then they tell me that. And it's like a quick 10-second unprovoked encounter that means they're thinking about it. Yeah. But I didn't ask them about it, and they're already like,
you're giving them the tools. Yeah, these are lifelong tools that they're going to take with them into the 3rd through 5th grade, age, and then middle school, and then high school, and then college, and sometimes we talk about the little things. It's like sometimes you're like, so many, there's so many things, and there's so many things we can't change, but every single one of those little things that we do matter, because the children get it, and they're little sponges, and they absorb so much more than we realize. And that's fantastic. So, well, I'm out of time. Joe, this has been, I knew it would be a great conversation. It has been a great conversation. Where should people go if they want to learn a little? I mean, obviously this is one, hey, how do I get a hold of this guy? How do they find Joe Pendleton? And I'm going to say it wrong now.
Mahtomedi.
Mahtomedi. How do they find you guys?
Oh man, it's kind of that's the trickiest question of all.
Okay.
No, but Mahtomedi has their district website. www.mahtomedi.
And it's I'm going to spell it. Okay.
I can spell it.
Oh, go ahead.
Yep, Mahtomedi, MAHTOMEDI. .K12.mn.us. All right. So that's how we find Mahtomedi, Minnesota. I don't really have much of a presence other than that, so you can find my email on that website. But like I said, my wife and I are working on some things, so most likely in the next month or two, you can probably look up Scout F Bears somewhere, or SF Bears, and you'll be able to find more about that and me.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you again, Joe, for being on the Brighter Together podcast, because as we've made very clear, we are brighter together.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks for having me.